Hi, I'm Dr. Joe Pojman. I'm Executive Director of Texas Alliance for Life. Thank you for joining us. I want to introduce you to a really special guest. That is State Representative Stephanie Klick from Fort Worth. Representative Klick is actually the chair of the House Public Health Committee, which was extremely important in 2021 in passing some very critical pro-life legislation. Chair Klick, thank you for joining us. It's a really honor to have you with us.
Thanks for having me.
Let me ask you first, I know this issue is very dear to your heart. Why are you pro-life?
I was raised Catholic, and I'm of an age where this was discussed in my Catholic school while we were waiting on the decision on Roe v. Wade. It was published stories about it in the Texas Catholic. It was something that we talked about in our religion class at school. And so that kind of laid the foundation for me that life's important and that we need to protect it.
Yes. Now, you decided to run for public office. Now, how long have you been in public office and what motivated you to run?
I was elected in 2012 and have served continuously during that time. But the life issues are one of the things that I wanted to work on as a legislator in Texas.
Professionally, you are a nurse, right?
That is correct. I'm a registered nurse. I have been for over 40 years.
Is there any doubt in your mind when human life begins based on your medical training?
Not at all. And it's something that should be valued and protected.
So you have been in the legislature for, almost a decade, and you've seen a lot of pro-life laws. You've spent a lot of time in the legislature. Let's see, your first session was in 2013. And a lot of the pro-lifers that have been around for a while remember that year as really critical. That was when a bill was debated in a regular session and then in two special sessions, and that bill ended up passing as House Bill 2. That was your first year. Can you tell us a little bit about that experience?
I was glad that my colleagues allowed me to play a supporting role because of my background as a nurse, being on the floor and reviewing the amendments, many of the amendments that were seeking to kill the bill. We had a mob in the Capitol that turned out, and we had to do extra innings to get that bill through.
People think about the Wendy Davis filibuster over in the Senate. Now in the House, you had hours and hours of debate on the bill and all the amendments. And you stood with the author, you and other members of the House stood with the author 4 hours with her. What was that experience like?
It was very long and tiring, but well worth it because at the end, we were victorious. The bill did pass. It was signed by the governor and became law.
And it became law, and that included a ban on abortion after 20 weeks. For the first time, some regulations on chemical abortions and some requirements that safety abortion facilities abide by the same safety standards as outpatient surgical centers in Texas and some other measures. Now, the Supreme Court actually blocked some of those measures, but the point is that was a critical landmark bill, and we thank you for being such a substantial part of that bill, which has saved lives. Flash forward to 2021, and you have you were made chair, given a tremendous amount of authority and trust by the Speaker of the House to chair one of the most important committees from the pro-life point of view in the legislature, the Public Health Committee. So you chaired that, and quite a number of bills were assigned to that committee for your consideration, which then passed out. I'm thinking about, Senate Bill 8, the Texas Heartbeat Act, and of course, House Bill 1280, the Human Life Protection Act, chemical abortion safety protocols, SB 4, which you authored. Tell us about the experience of doing that and the significance, the incredible significance of those bills that your committee considered, took hours of testimony on, and ended up voting on for consideration by the whole House.
Yeah, we're fortunate that there were lots of pro-life bills filed last session, and we had some excellent bills that we could hear in committee and vote out. In fact, we voted out 12 pro-life bills in the same meeting. I've gotten national recognition because that's not happened in any other state. Texas is a pro-life state, and I think that is what our voters want, us to advance a life agenda. And we passed some big bills. In fact, the heartbeat bill is becoming kind of the nation's standard. Many other states are moving in the direction of passing similar legislation.
Yes, absolutely. And we know that bill has resulted in a marked decrease in abortions in Texas. That bill went into effect September 1. And what does this mean to you, that now some of those babies back in September could be, who would have been aborted but for Senate Bill 8, are now perhaps being born?
It's very gratifying. And I'm hopeful that if the leaked decision out of the Supreme Court does become a real opinion, that we will save even more babies in the future. It was a significant achievement.
Oh, absolutely. Now, tell us about that. If the Supreme Court's opinion on this Dobbs case, Dobbs v. Jackson Women's Health Organization, and that's the case where the Supreme Court is considering a Mississippi law that protected unborn babies who were 15 weeks and older, but it really was a challenge to the entire foundation of Roe versus Wade. That that draft opinion, how would that affect Roe versus Wade if it is actually released in a similar form to what was in the draft opinion?
Essentially, if the decision would go back to the states. In this last legislative session, we passed a trigger ban that if Roe v. Wade were overturned, that our state would stop all abortions in the state of Texas, except to save the life of the mother.
Is this not what we who are 50 years or old or more been dreaming about for all these years, right? Since Roe versus Wade was almost 50 years ago.
Dreaming and praying. And I would encourage people to get down on their knees now and be praying daily that our Supreme Court justices do the right thing, that they stand for life, and that they remain safe and healthy in order to render that opinion very soon.
Sounds like you're a person who takes her faith quite seriously, and it means a lot to you.
It does. I consider my service in the legislature kind of a ministry. I've had many opportunities to minister to women because of my views. When I passed the dismemberment ban, there was someone that works in the Capitol building that came to me several days after that and shared with me that she had had an abortion procedure a number of years ago and was concerned that they had dismembered her child, and was very, very upset when she learned that probably was the type of procedure that she had. She has a niece that was in a crisis pregnancy situation, and she wanted my help in helping her niece choose life for her baby and to find the resources that she needed to be able to give birth to her baby rather than take its life in an abortion. There are many opportunities to minister in these positions if you're a believer.
That's remarkable. If the Supreme Court does, as we hope, and does overturn Roe versus Wade, and as you say, turn the question back to the states, I think you alluded to this a moment ago, but what does Texas have in place to then to take advantage of that once in a half a century opportunity?
Well, we passed a bill last session, and I joint authored it with Representative Capri-Leone and Senator Paxton, that when a decision was made by the Supreme Court that would set aside Roe v. Wade, that in Texas, we would end the practice of abortion in the state of Texas, with the exception of serious life consequences to the mother.
Right, right. So that has been passed. The governor need not call a special session to pass law. Texas, with a lot of great foresight, and you were one of the joint authors on that, saw this possibility and took advantage and got that bill passed. I recall that you had hearings in your committee. You gave both sides ample opportunity to speak. There were a lot of people speaking for and against. So you gave the public opportunity to speak on this issue as the committee chair. I and some of my staff and our attorneys came and spoke in favor of that law. And that ended up being, you put a vote up for your committee, and that, how did your committee vote? I guess we know the answer, but explain how it works.
Well, it was very much along party lines. And we did vote that bill out. And then it moved to floor debate. And as usual, the Democrats pushed back on that. But we were successful. And the governor has signed the bill, and we could be one of the first states in the nation to ban abortion.
That's fantastic. And that is just going to be one of the greatest legacies for any legislator who supported that, of which you were a principal part of that. So that was done last session. We're going to just have to wait until the Supreme Court does act. And as you say, being on our knees and daily praying for that. We get asked what happens for women who have an unplanned pregnancy. What is the state doing? What is the state doing to help with alternatives to abortion?
The state legislature added $100 million to the Alternatives to Abortion program. We knew that with this legislation passed in Texas, that we needed to beef up funding to give women the support that they need to carry their baby to term and give it life. All the churches and pro-life ministries right now need to be getting ready, because I think that, if we are fortunate and God answers our prayers and Roe falls, there will be women in need of help. And we, as a believing Christian community, need to step up to the plate and serve those in their time of need and help them choose life for their baby.
So looking at that program, the Alternatives to Abortion program, it's highly successful. I think their goal is to serve 150,000 women every year in the 2-year biennium. So that's a tremendous amount of services. And I think even before the Texas Heartbeat went into effect, the Heartbeat Act, there were about 54,000 abortions every year. So we have 54,000, 150,000 women helped by this. I think it's fair to say that Texas is protecting the unborn babies from abortion and providing ample resources, vast resources for women with unplanned pregnancies.
We are, and not every state does this. And we've done it in a big way, but the need is great, and we need people of faith to be the hands and the feet to minister to these folks.
Yes. And by the way, it's important to note that all the laws that you have supported, including the Heartbeat Act, including the Human Life Protection Act, the trigger law, do have a very important exception to those laws for those very rare cases when the pregnancy would endanger the mother's life.
I think everybody is familiar with ectopic pregnancies, where the pregnancy implants somewhere outside of the uterus. And if those rupture, a woman can bleed to death very, very quickly. Another example of such a condition is something called placenta accretia. And with that condition, the placenta behaves much like an invasive tumor, and it can erode through the wall of the uterus. And when that happens, the only treatment is to do an immediate hysterectomy. These women often bleed to death in a matter of moments.
Yes.
So those are some examples of serious life-threatening conditions that could come into play.
Another thing, you have always, I think, supported laws that do not criminalize abortions for the women on whom the abortion is performed. Tell us about that.
Yeah, that's very important. I mean, I've counseled women that were contemplating having an abortion, and many of them have been coerced by their boyfriends, their spouse, their parents. I can't tell you how many young teens that I've seen ushered to an abortion clinic by their parents. And the approach of criminalizing the woman when she's been coerced, we've always treated them as a victim. And, they need the care, concern, and compassion. They don't need execution. There was a bill filed this last legislative session that would have criminalized the behavior of women, including the death penalty for having had an abortion. And that's not something that I can support. Again, they need care, compassion. They don't need execution.
For taking that position, you've gotten some criticism from a very noisy segment of the voters, or I'm not sure if they're voters in your district or from outside the district, but you are in a contested race and you are up for re-election. Texas Alliance for Life has very proudly endorsed you for re-election, and we are doing everything we can to let voters know about this. One of the issues that has come up is this issue of so-called equal protection, that a law that protects babies from abortions should be applied equally, but not a lot of people understand that when your opponent says that, what he really means is that women on whom abortions are performed should be prosecuted for that abortion, including the possibility of the death penalty. Tell us about that. It's just extraordinary to me that someone would have those beliefs.
He does have those beliefs. And again, care, compassion, not execution is what these women need. There are some noisy supporters of that approach. I've even gotten threats from those folks. And I really question how pro-life someone is when they make those kind of threats.
It is noteworthy that since 1854, Texas has had a law that protected unborn babies from abortion. And that is the very law that the Supreme Court blocked in 1973, Roe v. Wade. And they blocked it because of this legal theory, legal fiction, that the 14th Amendment has this due process clause, which includes a right to abortion. Don't need to get into that, but the point is that equal protection was not part of what the Supreme Court ruled on. That was not part of their decision. Anybody who reads that decision can see that for him or herself. It's also noteworthy, our research and our attorneys have discovered that what a lot of other people have said, never during the history of Texas was a woman prosecuted for having an abortion performed on her. Or there is never a case, there's no reported cases of women being prosecuted for being involved in abortion in Texas. And our law worked very well. It worked so well that the Supreme Court decided they had to block it. So they, it was protecting babies from lives. And there were some very famous cases of abortion doctors being prosecuted for abortions. And I think the point is we want to protect these babies by preventing doctors from doing abortions or anybody from doing abortions, and reach the women where they are with, as you say, the compassion, and provide the vast resources that Texas has created to provide those alternatives to abortion.
It's hugely important. And a lot of people think that, including those groups that would support the death penalty for women having had an abortion, think that we criminalize the behavior of women historically in Texas, and that's not the case.
It is not the case. So we thank you so much for your principled stand, and principles are important, but you are not only principled, you are effective. as a legislator. And there are babies alive today, probably thousands of babies who are alive today because of yours and your colleagues' efforts, Representative Klick, and we cannot thank you enough for that. So we do have an election coming up, and it is the runoff election for your district, House District 91. People are going to want to get out. Now, if you live in the part of Tarrant County that your district includes, they want to get out and vote. I understand you've got a week of early voting, which begins on Monday, May 16th, and goes through Friday, May 20th. And election day is Tuesday, May 24th. So absolutely critical everybody to get out. If people want to help your campaign, there's probably a number of ways. You probably can use financial support, people helping your campaign with block walking, moral support, prayers. Tell us how they can support both within your district and outside.
They can make calls from home, even if they live in another area of the state and can't come. If you go to my website, which is www.stephanieklick.com, and Klick is Klick, they can email us and let us know what they would like to do. We are block walking every day, and we can provide you with a list and the maps. We use an app to knock doors, and happy to teach you how to use it and get you the materials that you need to help us advance and continue to save babies in the legislature.
Representative Stephanie Klick, thank you so much for all you have done for the pro-life movement, all you have done for the state of Texas in general. We wish you well on your election on May 24th, and we are hoping and praying for your success. Thank you so much.
Thank you for your support.